Accidentally. This video is called Fantasy Football and Mutual Fund Performance. So as I record this, it's late August, and it's nearly football season. If it's nearly football season, that means it's nearly fantasy football season. This has become a huge industry, and it's an industry that's heavily reliant on information. So this happens to be a screenshot from ESPN, 2024 quarterback rankings, and they have rankings on these analysts moving from left to right. Here are the top quarterbacks, names you all know if you follow football. So fantasy football is complicated because the rules of each league can be different, and the amount of information you have available to assess players and to assess performance is overwhelming. So it's hard to know what you should pay attention to. Mutual fund investing is similar to fantasy football because you have a tremendous amount of information that you have access to determine performance. So what I'd like to do is take 2 or 3 important metrics that you can use to measure and assess mutual fund performance. So let's use Washington Mutual Fund as an example. This is from the American Funds Group. This fund has been around for decades. When I was in the brokerage business 40 years ago, this fund was being sold and operating successfully. So the first metric is what's the return on the fund, but the return assuming that you pay a sales charge. So you can see here 1-year, 3-year, 5-year returns on the fund, assuming that you paid a sales charge, because that's sort of the worst case scenario. As I said in another video, it may be possible that in some cases you don't pay a sales charge at all if you hold the fund for long enough, but let's assume that you do. What would the return be? So that's my first metric. Second is volatility and return, because volatility is the trade-off. If you choose very high volatility, you may get more return, but you also may incur steeper losses. So where does this fund fall on this chart? And you can see it says high return, low volatility, and you see these metrics. And where American Funds is, this fund, Washington Mutual, it leans toward higher return with low volatility, which is what you want, which says that the manager is doing a good job because they can generate a little bit higher return than other similar funds with not as much volatility. So that's a good sign. Thirdly, Morningstar. Morningstar is an independent rating company that rates mutual funds. You can go to their website and find all kinds of great information. And you can see that it gives a number of stars that indicates how well this mutual fund has performed compared to their competitors. You can see 3, 5, and 10-year performance. The risk rate for this fund is low, and it performs pretty well. You can see it's an average of around 3 stars. And finally, portfolio holdings. 2 things to look at here. On the left, you see these are the industries that they invest in as a percentage. And on the right are the actual individual stocks that they own. This is handy to look at because if you saw something on the list that had some negative news, that's something you might pay attention to and ask your broker about. So these are some of the metrics you can use to assess mutual fund performance. Talk to your investment advisor the performance of mutual funds. And now that you have this overview, ask your advisor what are the metrics that they pay attention to, the top 2 or 3 metrics, and why. It'll help you understand how to assess the performance of your fund.